Each day in our nation, hundreds of thousands of young athletes head out to the fields, ice, and gymnasiums to practice and compete in a wide variety of sports. There's no doubt that these sports are a great way for kids and teens to stay healthy, as well as learn important leadership and team-building skills. But medical researchers have discovered young athletes, especially kids and teens, often don't recognize their own limitations, especially when they have a concussion. Youth concussion can have long-term impacts on young athletes, such as their health, memory, learning, and even their survival. This has led to a new effort to improve prevention, recognition, and response to sports-related concussion. That's where you come in. It's your responsibility as a coach to help recognize and make the call to pull an athlete off the field, ice, or court if you think that player might have a concussion. The purpose of this training module is to help you better understand the impact of concussion, as well as how to recognize it in your players. Let's start with a few basic facts concerning concussion. All concussions are serious. Concussions can happen in any sport or recreational activity. Recognizing and responding properly to concussions when they first occur can help prevent further injury or even death.
It's absolutely essential that we have education for coaches so that if they recognize any of these symptoms, they can immediately remove the youth from competition.
A concussion is a type of traumatic brain injury, or TBI, caused by a bump, blow, or jolt to the head, or by a hit to the body that causes your head and brain to move rapidly back and forth. This sudden movement can literally cause the brain to bounce around or twist in the skull, stretching and damaging the brain cells and creating chemical changes in the brain. What you might not know is that these chemical changes make the brain more sensitive to any increased stress or injury until it fully recovers. Unlike a broken arm or other injuries that you can feel with your hands or see on an X-ray, you can't see a concussion. It is a disruption of how the brain works. It is not a bruise to the brain. That is why brain CAT scans and MRIs are normal with most concussions. There are many potential causes of concussions, including a knock to the head from a fall, a jolt to the torso from a collision, a hit to the head from a stick or ball. A concussion can occur from any type of contact, such as colliding with a player, a goalpost, the ground, or another obstacle. Concussions can also occur outside of sports, ranging from bumping your head on a door to being in a car crash. Don't be fooled.
Everything above the neck, essentially above the clavicles, the neck and the head, if there are injury symptoms referable to the cervical spine, referable to the brain, it is absolutely not safe to continue the athletic contest.
Concussions affect people differently. While most athletes with a concussion recover quickly and fully, some will have symptoms that last for days or even weeks. A more serious concussion can last for months or longer. Not giving the brain enough recovery time can be dangerous. A repeat concussion during recovery, usually within hours, days, or weeks, can slow recovery or increase the chances for long-term problems. In rare cases, repeat concussions can result in brain swelling or permanent brain damage. It can even be fatal. While rare, permanent brain damage and death are two potential consequences of not identifying and responding to a concussion in a proper or timely manner.
You can lose a child by being inattentive, by not getting rapid attention to the disorder.
That's why it's incredibly important for you to pull an athlete you suspect has a concussion from play. Did you know most concussions occur without loss of consciousness? Athletes who have, at any point in their lives, had a concussion have an increased risk for another concussion. Young children and teens are more likely to get a concussion and take longer to recover than adults. As a coach, you're the first defense, ready to jump in to help if something seems off, even when an athlete doesn't know it or want to admit it. Remember, you can't see a concussion like you can see a broken arm, and there is no one single indicator for concussion. Instead, recognizing a concussion requires watching for different types of signs or symptoms. So to help recognize a concussion, you should watch for and ask others to report the following two things among your athletes. 1. A forceful bump, blow, or jolt to the head or body that results in rapid movement of the head. And 2. Any concussion signs or symptoms, such as a change in the athlete's behavior, thinking, or physical functioning. Signs and symptoms of concussion generally show up after the injury. but the full effect of the injury may not be noticeable at first, and some symptoms may not show up for hours or days. For example, in the first few minutes, the athlete might be slightly confused or appear a little bit dazed, but an hour later, they can't recall coming to the game. So assess the player, then assess the player again. Make sure that the athlete is supervised for at least 1 or 2 hours after you suspect the concussion. Also, talk to the athlete's parents about watching for symptoms at home and when the athlete returns to school.
Well, the issue of concussions in youth sports is important because you're talking about a potential threat to the development of that youngster's brain. And certainly their brain is what is going to drive their development, their livelihood, their learning, their social interaction, and all those things are critically important. Anything that potentially affects that in a negative way has to be fully reckoned with and dealt with.
The key is to keep a list of concussion signs and symptoms on your clipboard. Repeatedly use it to check on athletes you suspect might have a concussion. If the signs or symptoms get worse, you need to consider it a medical emergency. In rare concussion cases, a dangerous blood clot may form on the brain and squeeze the brain against the skull. Call 911 or take the athlete to the emergency department right away if after a bump, blow, or jolt to the head or body, the athlete exhibits one or more of the following danger signs. One pupil larger than the other, drowsiness or inability to wake up, a headache that gets worse and does not go away, weakness, numbness, or decreased coordination, repeated vomiting or nausea, slurred speech, convulsions or seizures, inability to recognize people or places, increasing confusion, restlessness, or agitation, unusual behavior, or loss of consciousness. Even a brief loss of consciousness should be taken seriously. Pulling someone out of the middle of a practice, game, or event is never an easy thing, especially if an athlete tells you that nothing is wrong. But we know that your top priority is keeping your athletes safe and preparing them for the future, both on and off the field.
First responsibility of any coach is the physical and emotional well-being of the student athletes. Today, you've got to learn to get yourself out of the game, and then as a coach, you've got to be able to see when you're putting a player at risk, and you've got to get that person out.
And equally important for parents to be aware of these symptoms as well, both from the standpoint of understanding why somebody needs to come out of the contest, but also because the parents are with the athletes more than the athletic trainer, especially nights and weekends.
That's why we encourage you to follow these steps, which are part of CDC's Heads Up 4-Step Action Plan. Step 1. Remove the athlete from play. If your athlete has experienced a bump or blow to the head or body, look for the signs and symptoms of a concussion. When in doubt, sit them out. Step 2. Ensure that the athlete is evaluated by a healthcare professional experienced in evaluating for concussion. Do not try to judge the severity of the injury yourself. Healthcare professionals have a number of methods that they can use to assess the severity of concussions. As a coach, recording the following information can aid healthcare professionals: cause of the injury and force of the hit or blow to the head or body, any loss of consciousness, either passed out or knocked out, and if so, for how long, any memory loss immediately following the injury, any seizures immediately following the injury, the number of previous concussions, if any. Step 3. Inform the athlete's parents or guardians about the possible concussion. Give them the CDC fact sheet on concussion for parents. Keep the athlete out of play the day of the injury and until a healthcare professional experienced in evaluating for concussion says it's okay for the athlete to return. In the case of suspected concussion, the decision about when to return to practice or play is a medical decision. Sometimes people believe that it shows strength and courage to play when you're injured. Not only is that belief wrong, it can put a young athlete at risk. Don't let others, fans, parents, or teammates, pressure you or the injured athlete to continue playing. As you've probably experienced, some athletes may try telling you that he or she is just fine, or that he or she can tough it out. Don't be fooled. Tell them that taking a timeout is not a sign of weakness, and that playing with a concussion is dangerous. Don't shy away from sharing this information with parents and other team supporters either. We hope, through this module, that you've come to better understand the impact sports-related concussion can have on youth athletes. If we, as coaches and parents, come to better understand this impact, become more focused on its recognition, and more resolved to pull athletes from the game when there's a possibility of concussion, we will have come a long way towards reducing the impact of this all too common injury. And always remember, when in doubt, sit them out.